it was a bear, but we did learn a lot from it. When you think something's going on with your contractor, something's going on with your contractor. Trust your gut.
We have learned that is not our strong suit is historic districts. I have done two or three now, and each one has turned out the same. So I replicated the bad on this one instead of the good. The first historic district one we did should have been a home run, but we were a little bit nervous dealing with the historic district because it was our first time. So instead of contracting it ourselves, we hired a general contractor who knew how to deal with the historic district and the area and everything. And
Can I can I jump in real quick?
yeah,
This one we didn't actually know was in a historic district. It was an old house right next to a historic district, and we bought it off market through two realtors who brought it to us. And they told us specifically that the historic district ended at the end of the street. Well, it had been brought in down the street to include the house that we were buying, and we didn't verify. We didn't look it up. We just took their word for it. We hired their general contractor that they suggested because he knew these old homes. He'd done them in the historic district, so this would be easy for him. And yeah, it just went downhill.
so our first mistake was, well, hiring him, but you live and learn, right? So we've all hired a contractor we wish we wouldn't have, but so he started and he changed out all the windows for vinyl windows. And then the letter came from the historic district to stop because we were not allowed to change those windows. And to the tune of like $40,000 worth of windows that we had to redo. Matter of fact, those windows are still in my storage unit. So we had to change back to wood windows. And this was a almost 3,000 square foot, two-story historic home that at one point was a duplex turned back into a single family. So this was a crazy large house. It was the largest house I think we had flipped to this point. And it's one of those rehabs you feel like you're running in quicksand, like, oh, we're so close, we're gonna get there, we're gonna get there. Oh, and uh, we lost money, not as much as we could have, but we did lose money on that one. And I think it's one of the first ones we lost money on, and we all remember those. They're hard to
Mhm.
swallow sometimes, but that's been the most memorable bad deal I have done. And I literally closed on another one in that same area a few weeks ago, and I told John, no more in that area. That's not our specialty. Let's stick with what we know.
Yeah. And a little bit more detail. It wasn't just a normal historic situation where you're dealing with the some residents who are part of the board. This was a state controlled historic district. So the people that were on the board were appointed by the governor. So certain level of expectation there. But we did learn, there's in that area, there is somebody at the state that you interface with first. And once they realized we weren't trying to just give them the finger, which they thought we were doing by replacing windows and pulling railing off and stuff, um, we did learn how to work with them a lot better, and we have a good reputation with them now. Um, yeah, that was oh, I remember that house so well, unfortunately. And the less than a week before closing, we had a record-breaking ice storm in October come through and took down all kinds of trees and took down, there was a massive tree in the backyard, brought down part of it just between it was an old carriage house. It was a detached garage now, right between that and the house. Barely missed the house and the garage, thank goodness, but hit the electrical lines and pulled the riser off the wall. And thousands of houses had that same thing happen on that ice storm. And you couldn't find electricians. They couldn't find new hubs for the meter bases. And we worked with some contractors that we knew, and they got an electrician, and we we got it done. We got it closed, and we just thanked God. And yeah, that one's an easy one for both of us to remember.
I will also say one thing I was gonna mention earlier is our contractor, the biggest problem we had was he was a know-it-all contractor, and this historic district's board was a bunch of older women. And know your audience is all I'm gonna say. It's like, know your audience, talk to your audience the way they want to be talked to, because they kind of have your future in their hands. If you're pissing them off, they're going to say no to anything you ask for. And he very quickly got on the wrong side with them. So we actually had to fire him. We were more than halfway through, but once
Mhm.
we got rid of him, things went a whole lot smoother. Like they would talk to us, they would work with us. He just, I don't know what he was doing, but he was really making some enemies on that board, and it's really not a good idea.
Well, yeah, I'll leave that on alone a
Mhm.
little bit on that. But yeah, we knew we should have fired him before we did. We let him stay longer than we should have. Um, and that was definitely our biggest rehab at that point. We had not done one that big. If we would have known it was historic, we wouldn't have bought it. That was we were too young in our career to take on a project like that. But it was a great learning experience for us. I mean, it was the first one that we took all the way down to studs. Had to do building permits for everything. Had to do run all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new HVAC. It was a bear, but we did learn a lot from it, including when you think something's going on with your contractor, something's going on with your contractor. Trust your gut.